The word meninges comes from the ancient Greek meninx, which means membrane. We're looking here at a cross-section which shows the skull at the top and the cerebral cortex at the bottom. There are three membranes which encase the brain and the spinal cord: the dura mater, the arachnoid mater, and the pia mater. In conjunction with the production and circulation of the cerebrospinal fluid, the meninges function to protect the central nervous system. So let's take a look at the different meningeal layers. We're going to take a coronal section through the head and take a look at a diagrammatic representation of the meninges. Just to orientate you to the image, we have the skull on the outside, inside we have the left and right cerebral hemispheres, and in the middle we can see the superior sagittal sinus. You can see the dura mater here coloured in grey. The term dura mater comes from the Latin, which literally translates as tough mother. This outer layer provides a thick, tough and inelastic covering which lies next to the skull. It envelops the arachnoid mater and supports the dural venous sinuses. It's classically described as having two layers: the meningeal layer, which lies next to the brain, and the periosteal layer, which lies next to the cranial bones and which adheres to the surface of the cranium. Between the two layers of the dura mater, as we can see here, are the dural venous sinuses, and here, as I mentioned, we see the superior sagittal sinus. The dura mater itself folds in certain places, and these folds compartmentalise different areas of the brain. There are four important folds to know about, which you'll often hear referred to as dural reflections. First is the falx cerebri, which is the largest dural fold. This fold, which you can see here in this diagram, runs in the midline within the longitudinal fissure between the cerebral hemispheres. It gets its name from its crescenteric sickle-like shape, which you can see in this illustration. Anteriorly, it attaches to the frontal crest and to the crista galli. Posteriorly, it merges into the second important dural reflection, the tentorium cerebelli. You can see here that the superior sagittal sinus is contained within the superior margin of the falx cerebri, and running within its inferior margin is the inferior sagittal sinus. I've switched to another illustration, and here we can see the tentorium cerebelli. You can see how the fibres of the falx blend into the tentorium cerebelli, which is situated posteriorly. This is the second largest dural fold. The word tentorium is Latin for tent, so this fold separates the occipital lobes from the cerebellum and forms a tent-like structure over the cerebellum. Anteriorly, it attaches to the clinoid processes of the sphenoid, anterolaterally to the petrous temporal bone, and posteriorly it has attachments to the internal parts of the occipital and parietal bones. This dural fold is important and divides the brain into supratentorial and infratentorial compartments. I've just switched to a superior view looking down at the tentorium, and you can see that the anterior free edge has this concave notch. This is known as the tentorial notch or tentorial incisure and allows the midbrain to pass through. Third, we have the falx cerebelli, and as the name suggests, and having just looked at the falx cerebri, you might guess that this dual reflection partially separates the cerebellar hemispheres. The fourth and smallest fold to mention is the diaphragma celli. This fold covers the sella turcica and the pituitary gland. There is a small opening in it which allows the pituitary stalk and hypophyseal vessels to pass through. The next meningeal layer is the arachnoid mater, which you can see here coloured in red. Between the dura mater and the arachnoid mater is a potential space, the subdural space, which contains a thin film of lymphatic fluid. The arachnoid mater is very closely applied to the dura mater in normality, but the subdural space can be opened with trauma or other pathological processes. In the context of trauma, blood can get in between the dura mater and the arachnoid mater, separating the two membranes. This is known as a subdural hemorrhage or hematoma. The arachnoid mater is the middle meningeal layer and gets its name from its spiderweb-like appearance. You can see here that it has thin filaments known as arachnoid trabeculations, which traverse the subarachnoid space and blend with the pia mater like a spiderweb. The arachnoid layer is a thin, transparent membrane which cushions the CNS. It doesn't follow the gyral and sulcal contours of the brain and provides a loose-fitting covering. In places, there are aggregations of small arachnoid villi, which herniate through the dura mater into the dural venous sinuses. These are known as arachnoid granulations and allow CSF to enter back into the circulation. The subarachnoid space, unlike the subdural space, which is only a potential space, is a normal anatomical space between the arachnoid and pia mater that is filled with CSF. There are several anatomical spaces which are formed at different points around the brain, where these subarachnoid spaces are quite large and filled with lots of CSF. These are known as cisterns. The patency of these subarachnoid cisterns is important for proper CSF circulation. Various pathological processes within the brain can cause effacement of these cisterns and impair CSF circulation, leading to hydrocephalus. I won't go into detail about these different cisterns, but some of the key ones to know about are the cisterna magna, the suprasellar, and the various perimesencephalic cisterns. The final layer is the pia mater. Pia mater is Latin for tender mother. This is a fine, thin membrane which adheres to the surface of the brain and does follow the gyral and sulcal contours. This is a highly vascular membrane with many vessels piercing it to supply the brain. As a point of terminology, you may hear these two inner layers, the arachnoid mater and the pia mater, referred to as leptomeninges, which is Greek for thin membranes. The converse term for the dura mater is pachymeninges. So that completes this tutorial on the meninges of the brain. If you found this video helpful, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and check out our Patreon page.